Hello, and welcome to the Abiding Together podcast. Abiding Together is a place where you can find connection, rest, and encouragement on your journey with Jesus Christ. My name is Sister Miriam James Heitland, and every week I am joined by two of my dearest friends, Michelle Benzinger and Heather Kim. This podcast is born out of our friendship of sharing all kinds of things together, our walk with Christ, our insights, our joys, sorrows, tears, and laughter, and you are most welcome on the journey with us. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and welcome home. Hello and welcome to the Abiding Together podcast this week, and happy Easter. Again, we're in the fourth week of Easter now. Michelle and Heather, how are we Easter doing?
We're doing great. I'm so glad in our church that we have lots of time to celebrate Easter. It's one of my favorite things, of course. So, Michelle, how are you?
Yeah. I am good. Still smacking on jelly beans, and I promise I will quit the sugar after this week, but it is Easter, people, and we are in quarantine. And so that combination, you have to have sugar. And so I am still getting over 15,000 steps a day. So life is good, you know.
We're doing what we can. And we have the distinct absolute joy today to welcome one of our favorite people on planet Earth. And he's never been on our podcast before, so we're going to welcome him for the first time. So we would like to welcome to our episode this week, Bishop Robert Barron. Bishop, how are you today?
I'm well. Thank you guys for having me on. I'm just delighted to be with you.
Yeah, you hanging in there during the quarantine?
You know, I almost hesitate to say this, but in some ways, the quarantine has been a marvelous time. What I mean, it's been like a retreat in a way. And I've gone back to work on a book, which I started maybe like a year ago. And I thought, maybe in the next couple years, I'll be able to, with all my other duties, you know. It's a book on the Nicene Creed, trying to read it theologically. Well, anyway, I'm almost done with it. No kidding. I've had these weeks where, you know, we've done the Zoom meetings with the bishops and the priests and all that, but I've just got more time. And I've gone back to my writing, plenty of time for prayer, exercise. I'm actually sleeping better because I'm not traveling so much. So I don't want to belittle it, but for me, there's been something kind of lovely about this time. Even as, you know, like everybody, I'm a little crazy and antsy and I want to get back, of course, to life. But there has been something lovely about it, too.
I think it's certainly a gift that God is giving all of us. It's like planet has stopped, you know?
Yeah.
There's nothing anybody can do about it.
And so we got to find, you know, some things that maybe we wouldn't normally do. We wouldn't have time for. And I've been recommending some of the spiritual classics that, someday I'll get to Augustine's Confessions, or I'll get to the Seven-Story Mountain, or I'll get to Dante. Well, here's your chance, you know. We have some time.
Definitely, yeah. Well, the first question that we ask our guest, Bishop, is something very practical. It's how do you take your coffee? Honestly, tell us the truth.
Seriously, give us the lowdown.
I love coffee. I think the Keurig coffee maker is the greatest invention of the 20th century. I'm dead serious. I think it's just this marvelous. I remember the days, you know, you'd have to make a whole pot of coffee and then you'd waste a lot of it. And so first thing in the morning, I come down, I wake up pretty early. I come down, I get a cup of coffee, and I go to my chapel. And that's how I do my holy hour. And I usually have 2 cups of coffee during the holy hour. Oh, my God. I take it with a little bit of half and half.
Very good.
Yeah, you and Sister Miriam are same.
Yes, seriously.
We're a mix of coffee lovers, so you just fit right
I love coffee. I drink it all day, but I couldn't. I'd get a little too, overstimulated. But I have 2 cups of coffee in the morning, usually a cup of coffee then after dinner.
Wow,
but I know I love coffee.
Well, it's the 8th sacrament, as we all know. Let's just be
you hold it and you smell it and you taste it, and it's true. It's lovely, you know.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, Heather, do you want to start us off with the rest of the questions with Bishop? Yeah.
Yes, Bishop, we wanted to talk about beauty in particular, because we know that this is something that is very close to your heart, and it is for us as well, as we try to learn ways to evangelize and reach the culture. It seems the most natural thing because we're all drawn to it. And so just the first thing we were wondering is, when did you first fall in love with beauty and have an experience that transcended, just the natural to the supernatural?
I would say a key thing for me was when I was about 12, I loved history. And I was part of this book club, back in the day when you actually filled out pieces of paper and sent them in the mail and stuff. And I saw this book called Civilization by Kenneth Clark, and it had a cool cover. And when I was like, let's say 12 or 13, and I thought, it must be a book about like European civilization, like the history and the armies and kings. And so I ordered that book, and the book came, and I remember being very disappointed when I opened it up and realized, oh, it's kind of an art book. It's about pictures and paintings and cathedrals. So I was disappointed, but I read it. And I don't know if you know that book. It was a very important book to me. And in many ways, the Catholicism series I did, many years later, was based on it. But that book, which is written by a great master, Kenneth Clark, was head of the National Gallery in London, and one of the great art historians. And he opened my eyes to a lot of the most beautiful things in Western culture, because he goes to the, Sistine Chapel, of course, and the David, but also the Gothic churches. That was my first introduction to the Gothic churches, which have been so important to me. I say that book was my first introduction. And what a terrific grace. What a great introduction. I was mentored by this very, very high figure, Kenneth Clark. And I still have that self-same book is up in my room someplace. And it's been like one of the great books of my life. So that probably was the breakthrough.
That's amazing.
It's astounding to be that young, Bishop. I mean, did you realize at a young age you had an intellectual and kind of a artistic kind of bent? Or, I mean, was that something that you knew about yourself, or did you discover that along the way?
Well, I always loved books. And my mother, who's now 98 years old, and she's hanging in there, but having a tough time with this whole coronavirus thing. She did this living place, But my mom got for my brother and me and my sister the World Book Encyclopedias. So again, we're talking early 60s here, So this was our version of the internet. And it was like, I don't know, 20 or so volumes of an encyclopedia. And I don't know why, but I love those books. As a little kid, I would just open them up and I'd pore over them. And almost anything that I've experienced in my life, I first experienced in the pages of those encyclopedias. So whether it's, Paris or, it's Notre Dame Cathedral, or it's the presidents, or what, I first learned about them in those books, which are full of words, but also a lot of pictures. And so that's where I realized I loved books, ideas. I was good in school, I discovered I've done a lot of drawing and painting too over the years. And I discovered that when I was in fourth grade, and we had art class, we went outside. And the teacher said, just find something and draw it, And I found a tree. It's still there. It's by my home parish, St. John of the Cross in Western Springs, Illinois. And it was this kind of distinctively shaped tree. And I drew it, And he came by, I remember, he said, wow, that's pretty good. Like, I knew I had some ability to at least imitate forms. So the intellectual, the artistic were there, pretty early on.
That's amazing. Okay. They told me, I don't know if I could ask you or not, but I'm going to ask you anyway. How many books do you have in your library? Like, I'm obsessed. I'm a big book. I'm a huge book lover also, and a voracious reader. So how many books do you have in your personal library? I just have to know.
I don't know, honestly. I've got my books now are in 4 or 5 different places. They're here in my office in Santa Barbara. I've got another group upstairs in my room. Another group. I've got a couple of rooms in LA because I've got to get back and forth to Los Angeles a lot. And I've got a couple of rooms there. And so I've got books there. Then I've got books at the Word on Fire office, which is here in Santa Barbara. So we took all my books I had when I was at Mundelein as teacher and rector, and we moved them out here, but we couldn't fit them all in one place. I don't know, honestly, how many there are.
I love it. Yeah.
It's the downside for me now is I'm kind of lost with the book. I don't know where they are. They're all in different places. And frequently, and I don't know if you can see, we have the videos up here while we record, but right next to my desk is this pile that I'm working on this book on the Creed. But whenever I think of a book, I'd like to find that one. No idea where it is. I have no idea where it is.
Okay, me too. That makes me feel so much better.
Yeah. I love books. I love the feel of a book, and the smell of a book. I love, bookstores are fading away. We've got a great one here in Santa Barbara, right near my house, called Chaucer's Bookstore, old-fashioned bookstore, big, lots of books and cool, not just pop things, but, books on Kant and that sort of thing. And I love it. But I feel bad for the younger generation for whom bookstores are fading away. At the same time, I love Amazon. I'll be honest with you. I love being able to order a book, but I've always loved them. Yeah.
I think there's something amazing about you because you have this love for history and this love for literature and this love for civilization, which feeds into beauty, which I love, watching you teach Balthazar, like he leads, with beauty, and he always feels like beauty can almost possess us. So for us as laity, so Heather and I, for laity, how would you say, how can the laity be possessed by beauty, and how do we evangelize in beauty in this culture right now?
Well, to be possessed by beauty is in some ways the finest, most sublime thing in life. As Balthazar would say, that aesthetic arrest, when the truly beautiful stops you in your tracks. That's why, it always kind of infuriates me when people talk about the beautiful is merely subjective. It's just, something I happen to like. And I mean, give me a break, because the truly beautiful doesn't submit to our little whims and our little preferences. And, I like that. I mean, who cares? The truly beautiful stops you in your tracks and seizes you and takes control of you and doesn't let you go. You know what I'm saying? It's like the same. That's why they're related, the true and the good, the beautiful. Oh, the truth, that's just a subjective whim. It's just a matter of relativism. Come off it. I mean, when something is really true, like 2 + 3 = 5, and you grasp that as true, it's not a matter of your little stupid opinion or, I'm going to ratify that. 2 + 3 being equal to 5 doesn't care a whit about whether you like it or not. The same is true of the beautiful. You know what I'm saying? So that I'm resistant to it. It's in the modern culture so deeply that everything is subject to my decision, and I'll make that. Don't tell me what to think, and I decide. That locks us into such a little narrow space, of my little world that I will choose to ratify. Come on. The great things in life are when the good, the true, and the beautiful break through our little subjectivities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they seize us and they make us change. Jesus always had that effect on people. He was constantly stopping and shaking and startling and breaking through. And that's what the true and the good and the beautiful do. And we have to learn to be servants of them. And, I think of James Joyce, the great novelist, who, when you read his portrait of the artist as a young man, that's what he realizes, that my job, my vocation now is to be a reporter of epiphanies, he called them, when the beautiful really breaks through. Well, what I love about that is Joyce certainly has an ambiguous relation to the church and all that, but he still saw himself as a servant of something greater than himself. It wasn't like his sovereign subjectivity was setting the tone for life. No. That's such a boring. And God help our younger people that are so in the grip of that ideology, I think. No, let the beautiful break through the carapace of your own self-regard, your own little world. Let in the light, as Chesterton said. Let your head be cracked open that lets in the light, So that's, I'm ranting here, but I apologize. But that's good. What the good and the true and the beautiful do to us, I think.
I think that's one of the beauties of what you were saying earlier, this time of quarantine, although there is a tremendous amount of suffering and hardship for some people, because we are moving at a slower pace. There is an incredible opportunity for us to experience that pause and recognize, I was saying to you, being from Vancouver, we are so blessed up here with the mountains and the stunning beauty outside. But I think for people now, that could be one gift, that if they take the time to pause and look up, that they could experience beauty in a whole new way.
Quite right. Yeah, quite right. And that's what prayer is in some ways. Prayer is stopping and taking a very deep contemplative look at the real. If God is, Thomas says, the ens realissimum, right? God's the realest thing. That whenever we really get in touch with reality, and that's what the truth is all about, that's a taste of God. If God is beauty itself, God is the good itself, then good and beautiful things give us a taste. But you're right, that sometimes we have to pause and let ourselves be stopped, and we have to move into a contemplative frame of mind.
And don't you think, Bishop, we talk about Christ being so beautiful, and I think there's something about beauty that makes us vulnerable.
Yeah.
And, John Paul II is very well known for his letter to artists, but Pope Benedict wrote an astounding letter to artists as well. I'm sure you're aware of it. He talks about in that how beauty pierces us and makes us long for eternity. Yeah. It like pulls and it makes us small. Like you said, we're seized by it. And I think it's unnerving to people at times. Like you said, you can ration away the good and the true, but when beauty pierces you, it makes you vulnerable. It makes you ache for something you can't articulate. And sometimes people mitigate against that at all costs.
Yeah. So what you're naming there, sister, is what C.S. Lewis saw as the best and worst in life. And what he meant was those moments when, and we all know what that's like, when you sense something that's so beautiful, whether it's a passage in Shakespeare or it's the sunset, or it's a beautiful person or face or whatever it is, that we rejoice in that, we revel in it. But then there's that aching quality because you realize, it's going to fade. Like the sunset's a good example of that. Like just for we had the other day here in Santa Barbara, everybody was outside within minutes because there was it's one of those weird like little rain burst, and then suddenly the clouds cleared, the sun came out, and then this magnificent rainbow, like end to end, complete rainbow appeared. So everybody just went out in the street and we're taking pictures of it. Lasted 5 minutes, I'd say like rainbows do. It's gone. Well, same is true as we know of people and faces and whatever it is. The beautiful, it ravishes us, and then it disappears because it's a servant of a higher beauty, and it makes us long. That's what Lewis called joy. It's not like something superficial, but it's that deep longing of the heart for the source of the good, the true, and the beautiful. But it's the best and worst thing in life in a way.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It is, because it's that longing and you don't know exactly where to put it, or where it goes or what it happens to.
Yeah.
So for the laity, like just your normal person that's sitting in the pews, what would you say would be the first step to encountering beauty? Like just paying attention or being aware?
Be alive to it.
Yeah.
Be alive to it. Now, Aquinas' famous definition of the beauty occurs at the intersection of consonantia, integritas, and claritas. So integritas is wholeness, right? It hangs together. Consonantia is all the parts fit together. It's a harmonious quality. And then claritas is shine or radiance, That's a wonderful definition of the beautiful, whether it's a beautiful painting, a beautiful building, or like I say as a golfer, like a beautiful golf swing. If you watch one of the really great golfers, you notice all three of those things very clearly. Integritas. When you look at a bad swing like mine, if you were to film my swing, it's not about one thing. Like it doesn't hang together. It's got weird extraneous elements and corrections, and you know what I mean? And therefore it doesn't have consonantia. It doesn't have harmony. One part is out of step. Like, oh, no, don't turn that quickly because it'll get you. And then you come over the top and you'll hit the ball. It doesn't have consonantia. It's got a sort of cacophonous quality. And then it doesn't shine. And claritas, beautiful radiance, means the shining forth of the form. Like when you see a truly great golf swing, Tiger or someone like that, Jack Nicklaus, and you say, wow, that is a golf swing. Like that is what it's supposed to look like, right? So that's claritas. It's the manifestation of the form. So those are the three things to look for. When they come together, Aquinas says, you have the beautiful. So I think be on the lookout. That's James Joyce, to be on the lookout for epiphanies. Now, Joyce had the transcendent skill then to write about it. We didn't all have that, but to be alive to the beautiful, to look for it whenever you see it. And maybe in unusual places. And for us religious types, we can fall into the danger, the difficulty of saying, well, only very clearly holy things are beautiful. Well, no. I mean, look in secular art and film and all kinds of things. You can find the beautiful. Now, it's often mixed in with a lot of other stuff that isn't so good. Okay, but find it and isolate it and point to it. And the same with the good and the true. So the good is what appeals to the will. The true is what appeals to the mind. wherever they appear, the Aquinas said that, that whenever the true appears, it's something of God. And so whether it's in, it's in an ancient philosopher like Aristotle, it's in a Muslim commentator like Averroes, it's in a Jewish rabbi like Moses Maimonides, wherever Thomas found it, he said, good, there it is. There's the true. So that's what I think we do with the beautiful as well. That's why in my work, I started on YouTube with film commentation or commentary, and I still do that. I still do it. I don't see films as much, but if you see something beautiful, talk about it.
Yeah, that's something that I appreciate so much about you, Bishop Barron. It's a gift that you are able to extract what is good and true and beautiful out of the culture and present it through a Christian lens and worldview. And I think that's very hard for a lot of people in the church in their desire to be holy and to resist temptation and keep out bad things. Sometimes they completely shut out, things that are in the culture, and it's at the expense of beauty to be found there. So what would you say for people who are struggling with, like, how do I engage in the culture without being taken away from my relationship with God, but to experience that beauty there?
I'd say what Newman said, namely, assimilate what you can, even as you resist what you must. So Newman compared it to an animal moving through its environment. So if you have an animal that's roaming around, if the animal is completely acquiescent to his environment, he'll be dead in very short order because he's not resisting what he has to resist, whether that means fighting or running or resisting disease or whatever it is. At the same time, if all he does is resist his environment, he'll also die because then he won't eat anything. He won't take anything in from the environment. So the church, Newman felt, moves through history, time and space, a bit like that. It assimilates what it can. So it's always on the lookout for, what can I use? What can feed me here? What can I take to myself? Which I think is part of the Catholic genius, of course, that we've done that like crazy from the beginning. We've taken to ourselves what we can from the secular environment or whatever the environment is. But at the same time, you resist what you have to, because there are certain things in the environment that are really toxic to us. And if we're taking it all in, well, then we're making ourselves sick. Now, I'm going to oversimplify, but when I was coming of age, at the time just after Vatican II, we were so into the culture. It was like culture, that we just took everything in. Well, that wasn't good for us. And it made the church sick in a lot of ways. And when I started writing, when I finished my doctorate, that's what a lot of my early writing was about. When I was going after beige Catholicism and I was talking about the dangers of a Catholic liberalism, that was too acquiescent to its environment. It was too uncritical. The culture was always right. We're always corrupt and wrong. Unless, well, no, the culture's got a lot of fallen things in it that we should resist. And the culture has things that are true and good and beautiful, seeds of the word, right, as the church fathers called them. So you got to do both. And, if you want to do the liberal conservative thing, the danger of both sides is that liberals can say all for the culture, conservatives are all against the culture. And think of Newman. You got to be both. You got to be a little deft and a little, like a good tennis player that's able to respond as the ball moves, right? If you got a tennis player that can just as a good forehand, well, figure that out quickly. Just hit all to his backhand, you'll beat him. Or vice versa. He's only good at charging the net. Well, then just keep throwing the ball over his head. It's easy to beat someone like that. So see, the church is like a good tennis player. It has a good forehand and a good backhand. In other words, it can resist the culture. It can engage the culture. It can go toward it. It can go away when it has to. Because if we just do one of those, and that's the danger of an excessive liberalism or excessive conservatism, the culture will beat us easily. It'll figure that out very easily. It'll outmaneuver us and we'll lose the game. So I'm shifting metaphor from the animal through the environment now to the tennis player. But you see my point, that the church has got this both and quality to it that enables it to stay alive.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think that's the beautiful thing. And I wonder, Bishop, for you, because I know that you engage in a lot of outlets that aren't Christian or not even believers. And I know you get a lot of heat for that. And how do you, and I love that you continually engage people like Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and like at Reddit. I love that. And how do you personally discern that? I mean, I know you get so many requests, like when somebody, especially people outside, like say the Catholic circles, How do you discern personally what interviews you give and what you say? That must be so fascinating to even consider.
Yeah, but a good example too is Dave Rubin, who's out here in LA, and Dave's got a very strong kind of YouTube internet presence. Dave is a gay man in a gay marriage. When I first met him, declared himself as an atheist. But they reached out to me, and I didn't know much about him at the time, but my Word on Fire team, a lot of them knew him and said, oh, yeah, he's someone good to talk to. And we watched some of his things, and he seemed like he was a very open-minded guy and talked to a lot of different people, didn't seem to be, aggressive and all that. And so, all right, I'll talk to him. And we have kind of almost a prejudice in favor of what we call the odd extra, the kind of going outside the church. And I think that's just a good thing. If people are willing really to engage me, they're not just playing some polemic game, or they're not just, they hate the church and they're trying to, take advantage of me. Like when I went up to Google and Facebook and Amazon, I spoke at all three of those headquarters. They couldn't have been more open and, willing to listen. Apple, we tried, and Apple said, I've said a few things against gay marriage. They wouldn't have me. I thought, well, okay. All right, fine. But the other ones didn't give me any problem. So I went. And what I tried to do, and I did the same thing when I went to Washington to speak at Congress, is I don't think leading right away with all the hot button issues that divide us is the best policy. I think you lead with something else. Now, we'll get there, but this is, as they say, a marathon, not a sprint. I mean, I can't present the entirety of Catholic life in 45 minutes. So maybe we'll start with something that it's a point of contact. Here's something we might have in common that we could base a conversation on. So that's always been my approach. I think beginning in a stance of opposition, I mean, I don't know where that's going to get us. It might make some of your supporters say, oh, that guy, boy, he's taking a strong stand. But if the goal is I'm trying to bring people to Christ, encouraging my cheerleading section is not really what I'm trying to do. You know what I mean? So that's how I look at that stuff.
Yeah, your conversation with Jordan Peterson, there were so many beautiful moments in there. And especially when you were taking things from movies and literature and you were speaking his language, it was just such a beautiful example of what you're talking about, where you were specifically that point where you're talking about going all the way down and the two hands of justice and mercy. And Jordan was so moved by it. And I thought, wow, this is just stunning, this conversation.
Yeah, it was, I'd been following him for a while. I still haven't met him. The only time we really met was through that conversation. And I mean, I find a lot of things in him intriguing and interesting. And, I don't agree with him on everything. When I spoke to the bishops, what was that, a couple years ago or something, and I mentioned how I thought Peterson was a sign of hope, that here's this guy talking about serious matters and indeed about the Bible and getting millions of young people. So I just said, I think, brothers, that's a kind of interesting thing. Well, people came down to me. One person said, Bishop Barron now claiming Jordan Peterson as the foundation of his apologetics. I'm like,
oh no!
Oh my goodness!
And I responded by saying, he doesn't even believe in God, as far as I can tell. I mean, so he's the basis of my apologetics. I mean, all I was saying was, here's someone that might be worth having a conversation with. And talk about someone who was, at the time anyway, really influencing the culture.
Yes.
So I think that should always be the church's. And my model, it's my old friend St. Thomas Aquinas is my model. I mentioned whether it's Averroes, Avicenna, Al-Farabi, Avicebron, Moses Maimonides, Aristotle, Cicero, Plato. I mean, these are all people that are outside the Bible. They're outside of religion. They're not Catholics. Yet Thomas was in vibrant dialogue with all of them, So he's my model.
So, Bishop, when you're dealing with, so you have such a strong online presence, and that's one of the things that we like about you, because it's like a new frontier for the church, and you're one of the pioneers in this new frontier. You're going where the people are. The people are in social media, so you're casting your nets out deep there. So how do you monitor, or how do you all deal with, the criticism? Because there's something about just the unkindness and uncharitableness of the social media, and it seems even with everything that's going on in our pandemic, it seems like people's claws are almost out in some ways, So how do you navigate that?
Yeah, with difficulty and with, with blood, sweat, and tears in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, I was first when it was YouTube years ago when I put videos on YouTube. I didn't even know you could comment on YouTube video, and I found out. I'm like, oh my gosh! I mean, I couldn't believe what people were saying, and I thought it was some innocent little commentary. But the fact that I was a priest talking about religion, so you've got the atheist agnostic crowd that just hate religion and they hate the Catholic Church or the priesthood, and so I got used to that, and. I learned over time to ignore 98% of it, but also to look for in some of it, some possibilities or again, seeds of the word or, no, actually something you're saying here is true. And I wonder if I can engage you there or, no, what you're saying here, that's not correct. So it gave me a certain toehold, in that world. The other one recently was that, what do they call it? Reddit, AMA, the Ask Me Anything. Mm-hmm. I've done it twice now. Yeah. And I told the bishops this, that, these people know who I am really. But the first time I did it, I was the third most popular one in the year behind Bernie Sanders and somebody else.
That's wonderful.
And then last year I did it.
That's the sign of the times.
I was number 2.
Wow.
I was number 2 most popular. And again, not because, they think they don't know who I am, but I came on saying, I'm a Catholic bishop who loves to talk to atheists and non-believers. That's all I said. So the good news is, boy, do people come on in great numbers. The bad news is, man, was there a lot of vitriol and hatred, again, from the, anti-religion crowd. But, all right, you make your way through it and you find some conversations you can have. That's okay. Mm. Then you got the Catholic left and the right, mm-hmm. Who can be just as brutal and unforgiving and all that. So I just think that's a bad strategy to do that. I think you do what Aquinas and Newman and C.S. Lewis and Chesterton tried to do, which is to engage the culture with the faith in a sort of winsome way. Mm. So none of those people I just mentioned was like harshly polemical in their approach to it. Mm-hmm. So those are my models. And so the critique comes with the territory, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But so it goes.
So your willingness to gauge is incredible. And we just have a few minutes left, Bishop, before we talk about our one thing. But we want to know, like, as a person, what are you personally passionate about? Like, what gets you out of bed in the morning? Like, you as a man, you've been a priest for so many years. Now you're a bishop and you're entrusted with souls and you're a man of many interests and many loves in that way. Like, what are you passionate about? Like, what just fires your heart up?
Oh, everything we've been talking about. I mean, I get out of bed every morning with great enthusiasm because I love reading, I love writing, I love preaching, I love speaking about the faith, and that's really what I do. That's my life in a way, both as a bishop, because as a bishop, I'm always heading out to some parish or give a talk or to preach or to preside at the liturgy. I'm not as crazy about the administrative, going to all the meetings. But that wouldn't, get me out of bed so much in the morning. But all the other stuff, and then this Word on Fire work, and I've always loved it. Reading, writing, speaking, teaching, evangelizing, all that, makes me very passionate. And, that gets me out of bed with a lot of enthusiasm every morning. Mm-hmm.
And you can tell it emanates from you. And I think you said one time in one of your talks that at the end of the day, everybody will always listen to an enthusiastic speaker,
Yeah, that's Aristotle said that. At the end of the day, people listen to an excited speaker. And I think that's dead right, if you can't muster enthusiasm for what you're talking about, how do you expect the audience to? And so,
Amen. Yeah.
That's old Aristotle, a long time ago said that.
Amen. Amen. Beautiful.
Well, at the end of every episode, we ask our guest and we offer a one thing for the week, Bishop. So it could be whatever you want, anything from small and innocuous to something major. But what would you say? What's your one thing for the week? What's something you're absolutely delighting in this week?
Oh, you know what? I'll tell you. And we've been kind of climbing high mountains of thought and everything here. But this ESPN program on the Bulls.
Yes, it's so good.
The Last Dance. I watched 2 episodes of it last night, and because I'm a Chicagoan, and I lived through the Michael Jordan period. And it was a great mentor of mine, Monsignor Bill Quinn, now with God. But he loved basketball, loved the Bulls. And so I was a young priest at the time. It was the old Chicago Stadium before the United Center. And Bill said, we're going to go because you need to see Michael Jordan play.
Oh, wow.
This would have been like 1990. No, it it was like 1989 maybe. So I watched the Michael Jordan years with great interest, and I watched the two last night. One was on Phil Jackson, one was on Dennis Rodman, and I remember that stuff vividly. And I actually liked the treatment of Rodman. I thought it was very interesting. So anyway, I know we've gone from the sublime to the maybe ordinary there, but the Bulls show,
that's just fine.
I think is really good.
No.
I love that. Heather, what about you? What's your one thing for the week?
Well, I've been sort of sharing over the course of the last couple of years this journey of building our new home and moving onto property. And along with building our home, my parents built a home that's attached to ours. And so finally, 2 days ago, they moved in, and it has been just pure delight and a dream come true. And we're talking about beauty today, and it's so fitting because, they just like walk through the hall, and they came over yesterday, and our kids were all hanging out in the kitchen, just having a laugh and eating food together. And it is just, it truly is a dream come true. So my one thing this week are my dear parents. I'm just so grateful for them. And it's going to be awesome. Yeah. How about you, Michelle?
In perfect Michelle form, I have two one things. I choose all. So my first, in honor of Bishop Barron, is I've been reading Father Paul Murray's book on St. Catherine of Siena that you all published.
Oh, good.
Yes, it is great. It is amazing. And he had me when he took Mary Oliver and St. Catherine of Siena, because Mary Oliver is probably one of my favorite poets, and blended it together. Yeah. I'm like, okay, you had me at hello there.
It's a great book.
Yeah. Oh, so good. So good. And the NFL draft, my, Bishop Barron can do the Bulls. I'm doing the NFL draft. My favorite player went number 7, and I was really excited. He's playing for the Panthers, but that's okay. And so, you should have seen Sister Miriam and I's text message thread about the draft. She's like, do you even think we're going to even have football in the fall? I'm like, it's a prophetic act of hope. The draft is a prophetic act of hope. We have got to believe, people.
It'll come back. It'll come back.
And Sister, you please.
Yeah, I hope so. My one thing for the week is a book that I've been reading by Cardinal Willett called Friends of the Bridegroom, and it's on a renewed vision of priestly celibacy, and I absolutely love it. It is so beautiful, and he's sketching out kind of people's oppositions of it and the history of celibacy and the heart of a priest fully alive for Christ, and I'm just really enjoying it. It's just so beautiful. Yeah.
Good. I haven't read that yet. I've heard about it, but I have not read it yet.
Yeah,
I like Cardinal Willett a lot.
Yeah, he's very smart. Yeah, very smart. Just really a wonderful, representation of the truth of the heart of a priest, and why that allows us to see God. So it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
So yeah. Thank you so much, Bishop Barron, for being with
You're
us
welcome.
on the episode. Maybe
my pleasure.
Blessing before we go.
Yeah. The Lord be with you.
With your spirit.
With your spirit.
May the blessing of Almighty God, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit come down upon all of you and remain with you forever and ever.
Amen.
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 Thank you so much. And God bless you, dear listeners. We pray that this week you will be encountered by beauty, and that beauty would reveal the face of God to your hearts, minds, and souls. So thank you again, Bishop Barron.
Good being with you all. Thanks.
God bless you.
Thank you so much.
If our podcast has blessed you, would you please consider financially supporting Abiding Together via Patreon? Patreon is a website where people can make donations to help keep the podcast going. And now that we at Abiding Together have an independent platform, we have a number of costs that go into creating the podcast and the high quality content we offer, such as our website, design, tech support, staff, and other elements. Having an independent platform also allows us to explore and create new content for all of our listeners to enjoy. So thank you so much to all of you who are already donors. When you donate through our page on Patreon, you are able to donate any amount, $1 a month, $5 a month, $500 a month, or just a one-time offering. Abiding Together is a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization, and donations are tax deductible. So would you please prayerfully consider giving to Abiding Together? If you donate $15 or more per month, you become a tribe member, and you will receive a short individual video from Michelle, Heather, and I each month about a variety of topics. You can see all of the information on our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/Abiding Together podcast. So consider becoming a supporting member today and help us further the work of the Holy Spirit moving in and through this community. Together, we can do amazing things. We are so grateful for your support, and may God bless you. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you liked it, would you please share it with a friend? Could you also leave us a rating and a review on iTunes? That helps us get the message out to as many people as possible. All the show notes are in your podcast app, but if you'd like them emailed to you, you can go to our website at abidingtogetherpodcast.com and subscribe. On our website, you will also find all of our past episodes and information about various episodes. You can also join our private Facebook group and get in on the discussion and all the beautiful things that are happening there. We are so glad that you are on the journey with us. And until next week, we'll be abiding together. God bless you.